and get ready for our next set of speakers. And I believe that we have up on deck our doctors Mike Lubelfeld and Nick Polyak. So I'm wondering.
Good morning.
There we go. Hey, how are you?
So good to see you. So great to be here. Nick is jumping on right now. We're thrilled to be part of this incredible panel. Thank you.
Mike, are you in California today?
I am in California today at a conference. Yes.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Thank you so much for joining. I see Nick is there as well. Hi, Nick. Good to see you
Good to see
too. Good
everyone.
morning. Good morning. And Nick, are you still in Illinois or are you in California too?
No, I am in Illinois. I was in our administrative meeting and I just said, I'll be back in a half hour. So I ran back to my office.
Thank you. You guys are awesome. You guys are awesome. Well, I'll tell you what, I am going to get this party started. First of all, Mike and Nick, could you please share, a little bit about your backgrounds? How did you guys get started in this business? And for Pete's sake, what is this whole unfinished thing?
All right. So I'll get started because I'm older, and then Nick will go on because he's younger. So I sometimes forget a little humor. Nick and I are both practicing superintendents. We practice and we actually do it for a living. Public school. I'm an elementary school superintendent in suburban Chicago. I work in Highland Park in Highwood, Illinois, North Shore School District 112. This is my third superintendency, 14th consecutive year doing it. Absolutely love it. Nick and I met at a statewide leadership conference more than a decade ago. And we met with leaders all across Illinois. And Illinois, from top to bottom, is about a 7-hour drive. It's a huge geographic state. And we were inspired by meeting leaders and becoming professional colleagues and friends with leaders all across our state, some who were like us, some who were not. And we opened our hearts, minds, and intellectual curiosity. And then we carried that forward through some national work. And we've been very blessed to author several books, to speak all over the world, and to be able to share a message and a mindset of unfinished leadership and unlearning leadership. Nick, how's that for a concise intro?
You've never been concise once for the 10 years I've known you. So, yeah, I mean, it really just comes down to that idea that there's no such thing as the best version of you. You're chasing fiction. If you think you're going to be the best version of you, you need to understand and embrace the idea that we're all unfinished. We're all constantly iterating to become that next version of ourselves. Just like our students and the world is changing, we need to change as leaders. Otherwise, we'll become dangerously irrelevant in the work. So being unfinished is a good thing, and it's a reality for all of us.
Beautiful. I really appreciated the Unfinished Leader book that you two wrote. And, in that book, you discuss the importance of vulnerability and authenticity for leaders. So how can school leaders model these qualities while still maintaining the authority and professionalism needed for your roles?
I'm going to start with this, Rebecca. That's an awesome question. So we look at being unfinished as a leader. It's analogous to an app on a phone or an app out there in the app store. So the developer puts forth their best effort in this app, and they really are trying, and they've had computer science and software, and they've had people check it. They've had family, friends, and it's a good app, but it's got some rough edges. So then the app comes out with an update because the developer is vulnerable enough to understand that the app is not perfect. It's not finished. It doesn't meet everyone's needs. So version 2 comes out. Well, then it's out there for a while. And guess what? The app developer learns a lot more, experiences different things. And all of a sudden, you're getting this concept of reiterating. In the Unfinished Leader, a school leadership framework for growth and development, we suggest, Nick and myself and PJ Capozzi, our other co-author and superintendent friend, we lay out a framework that starts with empathy and equity. It continues with adaptive leadership and the development of others. It continues with communication and change management. And basically, we don't know it all. Yes, we have a fancy title and maybe a C-suite and maybe all these accolades and degrees. We're learning more too and reiterating. Nick, what do you think?
Yeah, I would say, in addition to the words vulnerability and authenticity, I think the word humility is very important. I've been a superintendent for 15 years now. And in that time, I've seen a lot of people come and go. I've seen folks come into the profession and then leave, be fired, do awful things. So we've seen every variation of it. And what I've learned is that these high positions in school districts and companies can attract type A personalities and folks that feel like they have to have all the answers, and they're not humble enough to say, you know what, let me find out. Or I don't know this one, but I'll get back to you. Or I'm going to partner with Mike, or I'm going to partner with my superintendent in the district next door, because collectively we've got all the good ideas. Individually, we don't. And so when people aren't vulnerable enough to say, I shouldn't do this alone. Like, doing it alone is never as good as doing it together. And that's where I've seen people fall down.
I love that idea. Just because you're the leader does not mean you have all the answers, right? And I think that is an absolutely crucial point, especially for new leaders. You just grow into knowing those things. Thank you for pointing that out. That idea of leaders continuously learning and growing. So what specific strategies or practices would you recommend for busy school administrators to prioritize their own well-being and growth and professional development? How and why do we need to be leading the next level of and reaching out to our next generation of leaders?
Well, I will tell you, Nick and I have been fortunate enough to lead aspiring superintendent academies in Illinois, Mississippi, and online across the nation with the AASA, the American Association of School Administrators. And the short answer to your question, Rebecca, is networking, professional associations. Nick always says, let's find out where the smart people are so we can learn from them. And the smart people are everywhere. We just have to learn from them and work out with them. A webinar like this today, thank you very much, allows for just-in-time learning and access, so we can meet a host of interesting people from across industry to say, wow, I want to learn a little bit more, or maybe I want to find the book, or maybe I want to email you or call you. And essentially, through aspiring leadership programs, early career leadership programs, development programs, it's out there. My direct advice is to find your professional association and call the neighboring person who does what you do or in your industry and ask questions. Keep that curiosity burning.
Mm-hmm.
Really important, really important. Well, and as you all know, we get locked into, our little tunnels, right? And so we have to be cognizant and intentional about getting out of the tunnel and reaching out, don't we? I mean, the network, you got to build your network, right? You got to be proactive in that to get that support.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, very good, very good. What advice could you give to principals and superintendents for fostering trust and open communications with their stakeholders?
So here's a foundational belief I have, is that the schools that I'm blessed to work at, they're not my schools, right? These don't belong to me, right? I'm a temporary solution in terms of steering the ship. They belong to the community. They belong to the kids. They belong to the people who come and work here every day. And so you got to start with that mindset, right? If you're coming in and going, oh, these are my schools, you're going to do it my way, that's not sustainable, and it's wrong-minded. Mike and I have run into this really strange thing in terms of development and shared autonomy of running these aspiring superintendent programs. We'll talk to some of our colleagues who will say, well, why would I send my people to your aspiring program and pay for it just so they can go take a job somewhere else? Right? Because I want my people, I want the consistency, everybody stay here, nothing change, right? And what they're missing is the collective lift within the industry to say, yeah, you know what? You might send this person and they may leave and become the superintendent in the district next door. But that district might be developing your next principal, right? And so if you can widen your scope and see that this is all part of a collective, I think it changes the mindset. And so like to your growth mindset question, Mike and I will often, I'll give this example that my wife and I years ago went to Jamaica on a trip. It was one of our anniversaries. I forget which one. Don't tell her I said that. But, and we, thanks, Fran. We went on an excursion to Dunn's River Falls. And if you've never done this before, like I expected, oh, we're going to go see a waterfall. And it is a waterfall, but it's not like you're picturing in your head. It's a cascading waterfall down a series of kind of rocky areas. It almost looks like stairs as the water's coming towards you. And they start you at the bottom, and your goal is to get to the top of the falls. And so you march kind of as a team, all of the people on the excursion. And so the person in front of you will take a step up and set their feet, and then they put a hand back and they pull you up to where they are. And then you establish your feet and you put back a hand and you pull the next person up. And the group collectively does this throughout the entire waterfall to get all the way to the top. And so we tell people, don't forget about the person who reached a hand back to you and helped you get where you are. Somebody tapped you on the shoulder and said, I see some leadership potential in you. Or, yeah, I'll be your mentor, or I'll help you. And so in the spirit of that, who around you needs you to lend a hand to them to pull them up to where you are currently, right? You should always be looking for who's gonna help you up and who needs help up. You know, and if we all have that mindset, we'll all get to the top of the falls. So I'm going down
I love it. I think it's a great analogy, and what fun that must have been. Mike, do you have anything to add there?
Wow. I mean, Nick is incredible. He really captures it. I will tell you, when we talk about the growth mindset, it goes hand in hand with our concept of unfinished. It's really a mindset. If people want to get the books, that's awesome. That's not our primary motivation. Our primary motivation is to share collective expertise and wisdom that we've gained over the years of working with some of the finest teachers, educational support staff, personnel, Board of Education members, unpaid volunteers here in the great state of Illinois. And they've allowed us to help create conditions that foster that growth. They've allowed us to create conditions where some initiatives have failed. Sometimes we adopted a program and we did the training and we got the people and we trained the trainer, and then the results didn't work for the kids. And we say, okay, we didn't harm anybody. It didn't work though, so we're going to stop doing it. We're going to grow and learn perhaps why, perhaps what. And then we get a new program, new people, training, and new this. Ooh, now it worked. So the growth mindset is that in an appropriate and ethical way, we experiment responsibly and respectfully, yet we do that because research and evidence changes. Research findings change and evidence changes. And I think it was John Dewey back in like 1915 who said, if we teach today's children, you know, our own world, and I'm paraphrasing, we rob them of their future. So the concept is we have to grow in our world because the youth that we're creating conditions for learning are going to enter the workforce. Well, the workforce in 15 years is going to have new elements. And if we've created conditions where the youth can grow and adapt and meld and develop, our adults who are helping shape them have to. So we don't have the option of not embracing a growth mindset, if I could be so bold. It's inherent in how we lead, or inherent in how we should lead in our industry, in all industries.
Well, so what happens, Mike, if you encounter, and you know, if you read any of the Reddit strands, oh my, you know, there's a lot of folks out there that don't really lend evidence of having a growth mindset, right? So how do you help your staff shift thinking and get into that idea that growth is good? So how do
Well,
you do that as
yeah.
a leader? Well, right?
Part of it is relationship building and culture. Peter Drucker is quoted with saying, culture eats strategy for breakfast. Nick and I'll tell you everything. Culture eats everything, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So part of it is in our suggestion, in our observation, in our practice, building that empathy and equity, understanding who it is that we're serving, getting to know our peers as people, as human beings with hearts and minds. And then our concept of equity goes broader and far deeper than any politicized view of the word. We understand that as two white males of a middle class upbringing, we've experienced the world in a very different way than females, white or of color, males of color have experienced the world. So we understand right now that there is diversity of thought, of background within race, within ethnicity. So our concept of equity is really broad, meeting people where they need to be met and helping people. We also go to the theorists like Cotter and Fullen and others out there, and Kouzes and Posner, who have shown what leadership across industry is. Have a sense of urgency that is shared among your peers and your staff. Build a guiding coalition around an inspired vision. Start small and scale it up, and get people to realize it isn't that we're not going to change. It isn't that we're not going to grow, but it's not going to be thrust upon you. We're going to be doing it together. And Nick and I use an image of change from Virginia Satir. It's a Satir change model, and it shows up and down lines. The up and down lines show you, even in the quote status quo, you've got disequilibrium, dissonance, and chaos among certain members and elements of your organization. When you insert a change, you see large dissonance, large disequilibrium, large chaos. Through practice, through that inspiring of a shared vision, through challenging the process, enabling others to act, and encouraging the heart, as Kouzes and Posner found in studying qualities of exemplary leaders, we put all that together, rinse and repeat, and get some sleep and drink some water, because it's exhausting.
Wow, that's awesome. Thank you. Appreciate that. Well, as we, and you've introduced that idea of change here. So let's move to that. So, dealing with change, as we know, it's a constant for ed leaders. Well, for basically anyone navigating this world nowadays, especially with technology rapidly accelerating change. So how can the concepts that you all identified in Unfinished Leaders help our school leaders of today navigate change effectively while bringing everybody else along with them? So what are your thoughts on that, guys?
I'll start this one, Mike, and let you fill in the gaps. When we talk about change, I often reference a comic strip at a little cafe, and there's two chairs at a table, and it's a butterfly and a caterpillar. And the caterpillar points at the butterfly and says, "You've changed." And then the next panel is the butterfly says, "We're supposed to." That's the desired outcome. It's the necessary outcome. We talk about rubber bands when we do leadership work with groups, and like rubber bands are their sole purpose is to stretch, right, and hold things together. That's what rubber bands do. They stretch. We're like rubber bands. We're supposed to stretch into the new realities and things around us. And if you've ever opened up the junk drawer in your house and you find a rubber band in the back of the drawer and it's been in there for a few years untouched, you pick it up and try and use it, it's either stuck to the bottom or as soon as you stretch it, it breaks. So when you don't stretch the rubber band, it becomes useless, right? And we are like that. And our schools are like that. If we don't change, we're going to become wildly irrelevant to the work that we're supposed to be doing. And so we try to remind people of three simple words. And those words are: change is loss. That's why people struggle so much. They've got a current reality and a mindset. And when you change something, they've lost the old version. And so I had an opportunity once in my career to work with a group of English teachers, K-12, on selecting a new curriculum. And so there was representation from every grade level, and they went through all the different providers. They picked the series we were going to buy. We bought it. We gave it to them, only to find out a year later, some of them were still hiding the old books in their closets in their classroom and pulling them out when we weren't in there and using the ones they were used to using. Like, why? We gave them voice. We let them participate. Well, the change was a loss to all the curriculum work they had done, all the lessons they were used to teaching. Their comfort level was lost. And so if you want to effectively lead change, you got to help people grieve the loss.
Oh, wow. That's insightful. In order to help people effectively change, you got to help them grieve the loss. Very important. Thank you. Mike, do you have something to add to that? That's a
No. I think Nick did a beautiful job. The reality is we don't force change down people's throats. We don't thrust change. We don't say, I'm the leader, here's the change. That's a recipe for failure. We say, look it, we're going to be making some changes. Here's the why. Here's the evidence, the purpose, the reason. Here's the shared vision of where we want to go. We absolutely understand from a human-centered approach, this is going to be difficult. Acknowledge that. Offer strategies for that. Don't stifle the efforts, though don't stifle the feelings either. We are in a people business, and emotions matter. We're allowed to have emotions, and we're allowed to acknowledge their humanity. So I echo everything that Nick said and simply say, why are we doing the change in the first place? So you've got some priorities, you've got some goals, you've got some input, you've got some partnership. Okay, so if we want to go to point B and we're at point A, we've tried X, Y, and Z. We've not gotten to point B. We tried hard. We did a good job. We're going to try this now. And here's why, and here's what it's going to be. We understand it's different. We understand you're afraid. Let's address that fear together and go arm in arm, side by side. And then we'll make the change, whatever it may be. And it will be a element of growth, like the caterpillar and the butterfly.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And what I'm hearing, and of course you all know better than I, but what I'm hearing is, or what I'm reading and, what's being reported is there's just this feeling of educators being overwhelmed by these multiple demands that are, being placed on our schools today. So how can, as leaders, how can we approach this change and make it more manageable, bite-sized chunks, so that we get this sustainable cultures that are focused on student learning? What are your best guidance on that, y'all?
So in addition to the concept of being unfinished and staying unfinished and continuously reiterating, as we've mentioned, our first book, our first foray into the sharing our thoughts and our experiences with the world was from something called the Unlearning Leader, Leading for Tomorrow's Schools Today. And this concept of unlearning is really how we address this. So we all went to school. We all know what school looks like, feels like, sounds like. There's an old Time magazine article where Rip Van Winkle awoke from his slumber, came back to the 20th century and said, oh my goodness, what are these space age things over at the airport? The grocery store was overwhelming. He stumbled into another building and said, oh, I know where I'm at. I'm at the high school. So we understand that we are not in the most change or progressive industry, and we get that. So right there from the beginning, we've been doing things for a couple hundred years. Horace Mann, wonderful guy, 19th century. The Committee of 10, maybe wonderful, maybe not. Certainly not representative of American culture, society then or now, have established what the high school is. So how long do we wait before we have some type of peaceful revolution? Nick and I will suggest the time is now, because if we don't unlearn what we know now, it may take a generation or more who doesn't get the benefit of the knowledge that has been acquired and discovered and proven today because we're so resistant. So part of it is inspiring that shared vision is the short answer or the leadership philosophy. Nick, you want to fill in the gaps? What did I miss?
Yeah, I mean, we're here for the kids and all the frustrations, all the difficulties of the work that we do. It all comes back to positive outcomes for kids. As a former math teacher, I always say, I want to launch every kid out of here on a better trajectory than they were on when we got them. Even if we only improve their trajectory by 1 degree, they're going to land in a wildly different place than they would have as their life starts to play out. So if you're going to take care of the kids, you got to take care of the people that take care of the kids.
Exactly.
And so what is our responsibility to take care of the adults? And one of the things that it's taken me years into my career to understand something. When you talk to more veteran teachers, you're more likely to find folks that are disgruntled, that disagree with administration. Like when we hire new people out of college, they love us. We're their best friends. But then you talk to people that have been in 20 years, you're like, what happened? Why don't you like us anymore? We're still nice. What I've come to understand is that the faculty and the staff of the building are the true through line. The kids come and go every year. The faculty, they're here for 35-year careers.
Yep.
The support staff are sometimes here for 40-year careers or more. So they're the constant state throughout the history of the school district, and they've watched the administrators come and go, and they've watched the initiatives come and go. And so here's the new guy coming in, telling me to do this thing. We tried that 5 years ago. This is just like the other thing. And so we need to be mindful of how we cooperate with them and use their skills and talents. And like Mike said earlier, like, we're not bringing the good ideas. Like, I've never had a good idea in my life. So understand the value they have is that constant thread, and use them and take care of them.
Beautiful. Beautiful. I agree. Taking care of the adults in the building who are taking care of the children should be of utmost priority. And thank you guys both for doing that. I just really appreciate your two specific leadership and all of the great work that you're doing for your districts and the people that you serve. I do have a question for you from the chat. Fran, Dr. Brady, she wants to fully disclose here that she has had the pleasure of working with Nick for a few years here. So, but she does have a question here, is that we hear over and over that there are shortage of teachers, not only in Illinois, but across the nation. So Nick and Mike, from your perspective, what are your recommendations for all of us, namely educational leaders, to work on attracting the better and best among us to join the ranks of teaching and learning? What are your best recruitment strategies? Could you share?
Well, it's local, so it's at the micro level, trying to help folks understand how you can live, work, and play in North Shore School District 112, for example. That's our motto. You can live, work, and play here. And we're looking to partner with our cities. We're looking to enhance our recruiting efforts, and we're trying to make sure people understand what the general area has. So it isn't simply come here to work and collect a paycheck and do your calling, but come here and live, work, and play. So that's part of it, is to have a strategy and to do direct outreach. Another thing is have a competitive salary and benefits. Sometimes people don't like to talk about money. Money talks, as they say. And these folks who are supporting our youth and creating conditions for every profession to exist and creating conditions so that the economy can thrive, these folks need money and respect. Also, let's now going up a little bit, let's take politics out of education. If I can just say thank you to the Illinois General Assembly for passing 600 bills a year. That's a little sarcasm. Why don't we stop passing so many bills and let's start listening and learning, see what we can do. No more mandates, funded or unfunded. How about none of that? And let's, as a society, remember that every time someone does the big Gallup poll, they love their neighborhood school. They just hate public education. Guess what? We've got to close that chasm, because you can't all love your neighborhood schools and all hate public education.
Yeah.
Let's take away the hate, bring back some love, and make sure that teacher prep is respected and that teachers and support staff are taken good care of.
I
Yeah.
love it. I love it.
Becky,
Nick, anything to add to that, Nick?
Yeah, our legislators changed the pension system in the state of Illinois.
Yeah.
And the deal for younger teachers is a lot less attractive than it was for folks when we came into the field.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the byproducts of that is that, so we can advocate for changes to that. That's a role we should play, is to
Yeah.
change some of those rules and make it a more attractive profession.
Mm-hmm.
But what's been happening is we're hurting ourselves in the industry.
Yeah.
It's a very common thing to hear teachers say, well, I would never tell my kids to go into education. And it used to be,
yeah.
my mom was a teacher, my grandma was a teacher, my aunts were teachers, and we're breaking that cycle. We're actually doing this to ourselves. We're creating the teacher vacancies by not encouraging our own kids to follow what we've done. And then the last thing I'll say, hyper-local, is we've got a grow your own pathway in here through our Family Consumer Science Department, where we actually have our students earning early childhood credentials, running our own preschool, going out to the elementary schools to shadow teachers. And we started what we call the golden ticket, is when a kid completes our pathway, we have a ceremony, we have them sign, do an educator signing day, and I present them with their golden ticket to put on their bulletin board or refrigerator in college that says, hey, if you go finish your degree, Willy
Yep.
Wonka style, we guarantee you an interview back here at Leiden or any of our elementary schools. And if you come back home and teach with us, you get a $5,000 signing bonus.
Yeah.
That
And
is
so-
so awesome. What a wonderful program. Oh my.
And so it's about recruitment, but it's also about, Mike mentioned equity earlier. Working with our school board, we said we want our teachers to be more reflective of our students. And we said the only way we're ever going to have our teachers be more reflective of our students is to hire more of our students as our teachers. Right? And so we just want this to be the default. You're going to college to be a teacher, you're coming back here. This is where you want to go.
So love it. So love it. You guys, that information that you have just shared has been just tremendously valuable. I am wondering if you have anything that you would like to drop in the chat with our participants. Any type of gift. I think, Mike, you have put something in there. You've got a link to your information. Is that right?
Yes, so I put the Amazon author page. If anybody's interested in any of the books, by all means, check it out there. Nick and I are always happy to drop into a book chat or a book study for a company or for a school. It has been absolutely wonderful to see all of you today. I'm in California. I'm actually about to go into the training room to help facilitate a program for curriculum leaders around the country. But this has been a total
Mike,
treat.
I actually thought you were on the runway and you were going to do some traffic controlling.
I might, you never know. You never know.
All right, you all. Well, I'm going to let you get on with your day and just truly thank you all so very much. Safe travels home, Mike, and have a wonderful training. Nick, thank you for jumping out of that meeting. We appreciate the both of you. Bye now.
Thank you.
Good to
Be
see
well.
you. Bye-bye.
Appreciate
Recording.